Hello, and welcome back to the Thursday Night Kissaten podcast. Thursday Night Kissaten is a podcast that we talk about Japanese TV shows, movies, books, and other pop cultures. We update weekly every Thursday night around 5 p.m. This podcast is written and hosted by me, Cordelia. Hello, my dear listeners. Nice to see you again here at this little Thursday Night Kissaten. Hope you're doing well. Living in North America, I have noticed how the Western world tends to romanticize Japan a lot. People in the West, when they think about Japan, especially Tokyo, the first thing that comes to their mind often is this fantasy image. But it's true that Tokyo is one of the richest cities in the world. This is a city that's full of the skyscrapers, towers, and it's almost like a paradise for the luxury enthusiasm. And there's so many Michelin stars, the food restaurants, and food lovers. And you always see this imagery that is the stylish man and woman rush through the streets, subways, like chasing their dreams. Tokyo is indeed a beautiful city. However, in these days, no matter where we are, there is an issue of poverty. There are hardships. Not everyone is living the heaven. The women in our story today, though they're living in Tokyo, but are far removed from the city's glamours of Safa. Today in this episode, we're going to dive into a nonfiction book, Tokyo Poverty Woman. Tokyo貧困女子. We are going to look into another side of Japan behind the fantasy. Part 1. About this book, Tokyo Poverty Woman, was written by the writer Atsuhiko Nakamura, and this book is first published in April 2019. The writer, Nakamura, since in his college days, he has been reporting and writing about the social issue of poverty, focusing on adult film stars, sex workers, and caretakers. And it was in 2016 the online magazine Toyo Keizai published a series titled Women Struggling in Poverty, where Nakamura conducted in-depth interviews with impoverished women in Tokyo. This book, Tokyo Poverty Woman, is the result of 3 years of interviews. The Japanese edition published in 2019, and it was shortlisted for the Japan Booksellers Award, and the online theory granted 2.1 billion views. And last year, November, the real TV show adaptation of this book, Tokyo Poverty Woman, I thought the poverty was someone else's issue and problem, was aired with Volvo channel, starring Suli and Takahiro Miura, and it was total 6 episodes. This book, Tokyo Poverty Woman, besides acknowledging the rotten root of the misogyny in the Japanese society, it is also focused on the systematic problems behind the female poverty. These reasons can be summarized in 3 points, according to the writer. First is the high cost of university tuition fee and unmanageable student loans. Second, the rise of non-permanent employment system. And the third is the lack of social security and helps. In the following episodes, we will explore each of these causes in terms and showing how they lead the woman into poverty. I think we're going to use 2 episodes to look into all those 3 causes. The author has interviewed very many women who work in the industrial, who are mostly considered as urban poor, and because of the poverty that they had, they were being forced to sell their bodies to pay off the debts and to solve the family issues. Among the interviewees that the author Nakamura interviewed, there are female university students, dedicated office workers, professors, and single moms. Some were born into poverty, and while others was once lived in comfortably but fell into the trap of poverty due to the bad decisions, a divorce, or serious illness, and leading to the result that they have never been able to escape from it. What is like to live a life of poverty in the one of the most richest city? And what is the cost them to fall into poverty? These are the questions that the author Nakamura seeks into and trying to explore in his book. The reason why Nakamura chose the sex industry as one opener to get into the bottom of the poverty issue was because this sex industry once was provide a way out of poverty, and even allowing some to join in the middle or wealthy class. However, since 2006, changes have occurred due to the intense competition. Opportunities for adult films actors have been shrinked, and the number of films being made has decreased. And with the Tokyo's high rent, and only a few top actors can actually get works. And slowly that during the interview that this author he is having, he noticed that it's not just about the sex industry, it's actually in every individual industry, even the caregiving industry, the women are always the one who've been pushed into poverty. Even with the national certifications, professional caregivers and university grads are only earn about 140,000 to 160,000 yen per month. That is around $953 to $1,089 a month US dollars. This is not a lot per month. And well, the rent for like only 30 square meters apartment in Tokyo are range from 80,000 to 180,000 yen. That is around 8,000 to around 1,000 to $1,200 per month rent. So as most people they're giving their incomes to the rent, and they left almost nothing to be survive after that. So that's the reason why the writer started interviewing more and more people and conduct this book within 3 years. First, let's look into the high cost of university tuition fee. Also, this is important to note that all the women that mentioned in this book are not using their real name. Their stories are entirely true. Let's start with the first cost, the high cost of university tuition fee and unmanageable student loans. And we are going to take a look at the plight of the female university students in Japan. The first sentence of this book reads, I remember when I opened it up, it says, university students are really, really poor. So over the past 20 years, according to the authors provided in this book, that university tuition fee in Japan has steadily increased while the household incomes have decreased. Means what? That according to the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, the average of household income in Japan was 6.44 million yen in 1994. That is around 43,000 US dollars. But by 2019, the figure had dropped by about 16% to 5.60 million yen. That is around $38,000 US dollars. But however, during this period, the tuition fee at Japan's National University increased 4.4 times. It from 208,000 yen in 1996 to 535,000 yen today. And with the private university changing even more, of course, right? This meant that Japanese parents not only struggle to pay their children's tuition fee, but the amount they can provide for their children's living expenses is also shrinking a lot. According to a survey by 2017, the amount of living expenses Japanese university students received from their parents had dropped from 124,000 yen in 1994 to 82,000 yen. And after deducting rent, they had only 817 yen left per day. That is 5.56 US dollar per day. Oh my god, $5 per day, what they really can buy. Can you imagine it? Which is only enough, well, in Japan, it's only enough to buy 1 or 2 bowls of ramen in Tokyo. Tokyo is way more expensive. So as a result, many university students are plunged into poverty the moment they enter the higher education. So, of course, they can work, they can have part-time jobs, but they have to balance studying to meet the high standards and to strict requirements of the university with the working part-time job and to cover the expenses. But to be honest, I think people who are living in North America, I'm not really familiar with Europe, but I do know that in North America, this is a lot of students what we were doing back then. But the thing is, even with this effort, the money is never enough. So here example the person that the author interviewed, and let's give a fake name. The name is Okula. So Ms. Okula, a 21 years old third year student at a very prestigious private university in Tokyo, and is one such example. The author came from the student Okula, she came from Kyushu to study in Tokyo, where she has always been an excellent student. However, her annual tuition fee is 1 million yen. 1 million. That is 6,800 each dollar, US dollar. And she also needs 2.8 million yen a year to cover tuition fee. Other tuition fees, rent, utilities, food, transportations, books, and other expenses, and which is already half of the average annual income from a Japanese household. Okay, what she is spending for university is already half of average annual income from a Japanese household. But the problem, you see, if both of her parents are working and if she is only child, maybe this is manageable. But however, her situation was her mom passed away when she was in middle school, and her father, who ran a small business, lost interest in supporting him. And also she has a third sister after his affair was exposed. So with no support from her own father, this student have to apply for full scholarship and provide 2.2 million yen a year. But here is a very important note here, that the co-scholarship here, right, in Japan, however, is exactly something same our student loan in North America. It's not scholarship, it's loan. So they could have like a greatly relief from her financial burden. But her father, And her father, if she can also, with the scholarship, let's say the loan that she owned from the government, and if she can also, like have a little bit support from her father, then it's still manageable. But the thing is, her father told her that you are on your own for living expenses. I'm not going to give you a penny. So Okula, the student, thought that she can just only by working very hard and to cover her own, rent and all the other living expenses. But the problem is, if she worked too much, she lost the time to study. And this is another important information here, that she is actually a medical student. So even though that she found a job as a tutor with that's actually considered as one of the high-paying part-time job for a university student. It's not a bad one. It's actually very good. But with all the costs that she has to live in Tokyo, her hourly wage is only 1,600 yen, and is actually only close to the minimum wage. So despite her own efforts struggling with work and studies, Okula could only earn $80,000 to $100,000 a month, which is not enough to cover her expenses. The rent there is very expensive, and all the other things that she has to involve. So in the end, that she had to just take additional job. But still, sometimes she is struggling to pay for her electricity bill. So one summer, overwhelmed by the financial pressure, Okula found a job as a hostess at a nightclub through a friend. And after finishing her work at the tutoring school, she would rush to the nightclub to entertain male customers until 2 a.m. And she earned another additional $100,000 yen a month, and from the job that she took from the nightclub, and combine everything that she could earn from the tutoring school, and she's barely allowed herself to survive in Tokyo. So I did a small calculation here. She needs at least 180,000 yen a month to live in Tokyo. That's expensive, to be honest, for a student. And she also says she has to study after 2 a.m. She barely sleeps those years. And she says she really had no other choice. She told the author. Although she was only 21 years old, she looks very depressed. Even if she could manage to graduate, the student Okula would still face the very haunting or daunting task of repay her own student loans. The reason why I'll give you a little bit information here is that she is a female. Let's say she passed all the exams that she needs and successfully graduate from the medical school. But the moment when she starts working as a doctor, because she's a female, her pay will be lower than other male doctors. And she still needs to repay all her student loans. So in Japan, right, as I mentioned, so-called that is a scholarship as actually a student loans. I would rather they just call it loan. The student loan in Japan comes in two types. The interest-free loans for the students with excellent academic performance and significant financial difficulties. And there's another low-interest loan with a currency rate of 0.1%, which could raise to 3% once low interest rates end. So Okula had taken out both types of loans, and upon the graduation, she would be facing at least 8.8 to 10 million yen in debt. Think about this. If she's not earning enough money the moment she starts working full-time, this is not payable. She will be struggle again. And the way that she can pay maybe is take on another extra job. She needs to do 2 jobs and to pay out all the loans. And for the females, the only job that can be paid more is in the sex industry. So what does this mean with all the debts that they're going to face? Another interviewee, without it did not want even to say the name, did a math for the author in the book. Let's call this person name here Yamada, a 24 years old grad from a very prestigious university in Tokyo, and had to take out a student loan after her father's lost his job in high school. And her grandparents barely managed to cover her first year tuition. So by her 4th year in university, Yamada, this person, when the school held a repayment briefly for loan receipts, she realized she owned actually 6 million yen. Well, she started a salary at an advertising company that she had to secure a job. But the job only gave her 190,000 yen a month. So after tax, social insurance, and basic living that she could takes her 40 times to pay off the loan. So it need at least 10 to 20 years. And many students like Yamada were unaware of the consequences of borrowing money. The author points out that in Japan, applying for student loans is easy, and most students from low-income families are qualified. But since the scholarships are part of the national system, and parents and the school counselors often recommend them to the students planning to go to university, and many of the students are minors, and so their parents handle the loans applications. But as a result, these young people who have a little understanding of the future careers or the labor market are burdened with a massive debt. They all just think, once I get a job after university with a university degree, this is repayable. But they forgot the interest, and they forgot especially for the female, they forgot that how hard it will be for female to find a job and the lower pay that they're going to face. And also the students are forgot that the repay terms are really restricted. And for example, if the payments are missed for 3 months, the students in place on a credit blacklist, and they will be hunted by the collection agencies. And facing the sudden and overwhelming debt, many students, they are spiraled into confusion, and some under unspokenable pressure, and turns into, they have to do some high-paying part-time jobs within their full-time jobs, and eventually the females are got into the sex industry. The choice was very limited for females there in the society, and the writers and the authors find out that many women in Tokyo, including students from the prestigious universities like Waseda, Keio, Sophia, were turning to the sex industry to pay off their debts. And the author did not mention, because this book was published in 2019, but heavily was mentioned in the TV show that 2020 COVID made the female poverty even worse. Yeah, all those entertainment industry was closed down. But however, since 2018, it has become a common for young men or young women to seek for older people as sponsors. Yamada, who worked in a sex shop during her university years, decided to reject the advertising job that she was offered after graduation, and she decided to become a porn actress only because she wanted to pay off the debt. And due to her work and figure, and she was popular among the male's audience, and her film sold really well, earning her more than a typical office worker could earn as a female. But however, the stress, anxiety, uncertainty, and eventually destroyed her mental health. She quit the porn industry but struggled to find a stable work, but she couldn't. and eventually that she developed into alcoholism and spending time in the psychiatrist hospital. When the author interviewed her, Yamada, this person, looked very exhausted and worn out, according to the author, and her face marked of the hardship that she had all endured, and making it hard to believe that she was only 24 years old, recent graduate student. And also like Okula, the person we mentioned first, who was only 21 and had already lost all the hope in life. And by the way, they didn't really mention in the book, but it mentioned in the TV show that all the people who actually received the interviews, the author actually paid them for their time. And they said, I would like to be interviewed if this is a way to spending my time and make some money. That's how desperate they were. And then when the author asked her, what do you think, what do you see yourself in 10 years? Okula, the first university student we mentioned, she replied that I think with all the burden that I have, with the money and financial issue that I have, I think I may just end it. She said, I can't even imagine myself alive. I don't know how to be happy with the burden that I have. So the high cost of university tuition fee and the burden of student loans are the first reason why many young, beautiful young females fall into poverty and force themselves into the sex industry. And they're already in debt before they're graduate. And when they leave school, they face a labor market that increasingly rely on permanent employee. And this is the second reason that how women fall into poverty. It's a trap, and they don't know how they just stuck in it, can never leave. As we are going to wrap up today's episode, it is important to note that what may seem like distance issues in foreign land actually can reflect larger global trends that many can relate to, regardless where we live. Doesn't it sound familiar with all the struggles that, because of the high cost of education, the trap of the students' loans, and this instabilities of the non-permanent hiring system that create a cycle that is difficult to escape. Next week, in next episode, we will dive into the second cause and third cause behind the female poverty in Tokyo. Thank you again for joining me on this deep dive into the Tokyo Poverty Woman nonfiction book. If you like this podcast or like this episode, or you have anything you want to share with us, please leave a comment, and you are welcome to share this podcast with the people you think they might like it. Take care, and I will see you again next time at this Thursday Night Kissaten podcast.